recognize who you are, Lord, and we praise your name. We love you, Lord. Amen. You can take a seat. How's everyone going today? Who's enjoying the sunshine? I coach a team of Auskick kids, and I'll be honest, I've been a bit flat for about the last month because it's just done nothing but kind of rain and be muddy. And by yesterday, the sun was out, and I swear it meant that just was like go crazy time. So like, you know, a little bit of sunlight. I think they'd all been cooped up for too long, and it was worse than herding cats. But it was nice to be out in the sun. It was nice to have a bit of warmth. As Andy mentioned, it's cold outside, but it's definitely roasting in here. Is anyone like, yeah, overtly warm? Yeah, I'm getting the nod from Steve. He's warm. But it is good to be here and good to be gathered. I'm looking forward to some butter chicken as well. Yeah, someone's pumped for, who was that? Alan, of course. Of course you're pumped for butter chicken. But we are continuing today in our series. If you were here last week, you'd know we started a new series, Unbreakable, looking at what it's like to have unbreakable faith. Phil spoke last week about having a heart that's inclined towards God, and the start to having an unbreakable faith is having a heart that is turned towards God, that's inclined towards God, that desires God. And today we're going to have a little bit more of a look at what it looks like to have a foundation that is built solid to have an unbreakable faith. You know, we're going to look at David and Goliath, the story that we're actually looking at. We're looking at the life of David, and my favorite David story is definitely David and Goliath. I don't know if that's just because that's what I remember from a kid, but I love the story. I feel like we as a people, especially as Australians, love a good underdog story, don't we? Like, whatever it is, we always choose to go for the underdog. So much so now that you can't get on a reality TV show without having an underdog story. Has anyone noticed that? Like, you turn on The Voice and it's like, when I was 6, my dog bit me, and you're like, oh, look at you, you've bounced back, and I'm going to go for them. And then someone else comes out and goes, yeah, well, my dog bit me and I got scratched by my cat. And you're like, oh, that guy didn't have it. And it's like they want to break your heart so that you don't vote them out. Like, this person can't take another let's just go for always in sport, we want the underdog to win. It's a thing. And this appears to me to be like the greatest underdog story of all time. Until you delve into it and realize that David was no underdog in this situation. He just looked like it. But he wasn't the weaker man. It was actually because of the foundation of faith that he had in his life that Goliath didn't stand a chance. So I've ruined the story for us all. You know, David defeats Goliath. If you're new here today and you didn't know that story, I apologize, but that's okay. Spoiler alert, David defeats Goliath. But we're going to have a look at a few keys out of the life of David, because we know that our faith, when the foundation is right, it can be strong. Unbreakable faith. But when the foundation is a little bit off, our faith can be very, very fragile. I remember we got rid of an outdoor setting. I don't know if anyone's ever done this before, but I put an outdoor setting out on bulk rubbish, and I don't know why I was home at the time, but I watched them start taking away all my bulk rubbish, which I was thrilled about. Once a year, I get to clean out my garage. You should see how full it is right now, because it's coming, September. And they loaded everything into the back of the truck, and then they just left, like, I'd thrown out a table, an outdoor setting, and they left the glass. And I'm like, they've forgotten the glass. I'm going to be helpful. So I run outside. I'm like, hey, bro, I'm not creepy stalking you or nothing, but I just noticed you left the glass behind. And he's like, yeah, we're not taking that. I'm like, what do you mean you're not taking that? It's bulk rubbish. This is your exact job, is to take away my trash. Like, this is what you're here for once a year. I understand it doesn't go in my green bin. And he's like, nah, you're going to have to deal with that. I'm like, I drive a Corolla. How am I going to deal with this? You know, like, this is not helpful. And he's like, yep, catch you later, mate. And off he went. I'm like, so then I'm like, can I wait till they're not looking? And then, like, do I, like, carry it across the street? Anyway, I got lumped with this piece of glass, all right? And it stayed down the side of my house for way too long. And one day I was like, I got to just move this out of the way. I'm mowing my lawn or something. And I picked it up. And as I picked it up to move it, it shattered. Like, absolutely shattered. Like, sound like I screamed like I'd been shot. So obviously I'm a tough guy. I had glass, like, all through my hands, like, just everywhere. To this day, there's still, like, a pile of glass that I just can't get rid of. Like, I'm trying to rake it up, try, like, vacuuming. Like, me and the glass is going to live together forever. But that table, I had slammed cups on it. I had put heavy things on it. I'd probably sat my kids on there. Like, it was strong. And I never imagined in a million years as I picked it up, just to shift it probably a meter, didn't bang, and I know what you're thinking, like you think I banged it or I slammed it or I was right. Like I didn't do that. I just slid it across, and as I tapped it down, bang. Then I found out that's apparently a thing, like that can actually happen. You're not meant to like move it or whatever. Is that? No, we're good. And our faith can sometimes be like that. When it's got the frame underneath it, the table, when the glass is slotted in, it's actually quite strong. Like you could drop something on it, it's not going to break. You could get angry and probably slam your hand on it and it would be okay. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. It could hold heaps more weight than you would think, but you put it on the ground and it shatters. Our faith, when it doesn't have the right foundation underneath it, becomes very fragile. And we can be walking along this life thinking everything's all okay. And then one little bump, and our fragile faith can shatter. But when the foundation is right, like we're going to learn out of the life of David, it can withstand a lot more than what we think. And so to have an unbreakable faith, we want to live a life of good foundation. So we're going to have a look here in these verses, and we'll start here. And it says, David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he could come and defy the armies of the living God?" You know, immediately we see from David a faith response. So David's out doing his thing, basically comes in, he's a glorified water boy in this scenario at the moment. Like he's delivering food and drinks to his brothers. And he sees this giant really mocking God's people, mocking God. He's been doing it for 40 odd days, coming in, coming out, come on, who's going to... And David's like, what? Who's this guy? I think he is. He's like, what does the person get? What will I get if I remove this pest? You know, like everyone's cowering, probably demoralized after him coming and taunting them for 40 days. The king, who's actually their number one warrior, wants no bar of this situation. He's like, no chance I'm fighting him. And in comes the water boy, in comes the underdog, in comes the guy that nobody even noticed, who's been living out in the wilderness, coming to deliver some stuff. He looks and goes, I got this. Like, in fact, I got it. What will I get? You know, like, what do I get paid for this? You know, what's the reward for removing this pest? It's actually an incredible response of faith. And, you know, we can look at the trials and the problems that we have in life, the things that we face, the battles that we're going to go through, and we can look at it through one of two lenses: a response of faith, or really a response of fear, a response of brokenness. So you know what it doesn't say in the Bible, I keep looking for it because it would be awesome, that if we just did a certain thing, our problems would go away. Or if I could just have a little bit more faith, maybe I wouldn't have any problems because I got so much faith that I got no problems. But it doesn't guarantee that. The Bible gives us in certain terms that we're going to face trials and we're going to face problems and that we're going to experience brokenness and hurt. And we can choose to respond in two ways. We can leave God out of that, or we can bring God into that. And we can bring God into our mess and into our hurt and into our brokenness and allow it to shape and experience our faith. And again, not trivializing hard times, because they're hard. Bad things happen. We face brokenness and challenge and hurt and things that we feel like we can't overcome, and it's not faith in a God that's distant and doesn't care. It's faith in a God that wants to walk alongside us, that wants to include us in that wants our faith to get stronger and unbreakable. And this is what we want to see. David's no underdog in this story, because behind the scenes he'd been building. We're going to pick up these verses here. It says, they repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Now what have I done?" said David. "Can't I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before, What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." I love that response that David, little water boy, we'll call him, says to the king, the number one warrior in town, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." You know, the first thing we'll pull out here of David's foundation of faith, if you will, is that he had the right attitude. So much of our faith comes down to our attitude. And David comes in and he has this great faith response, and his brother starts calling him out, going, "You're just down here to watch the fight. Don't mouth off. Little David, where are your little sheep?" All these things. And I love that David just doesn't even, just straight in, "Hey, can you tell me?" And then goes to the king, and his attitude is one to serve. You got the king whose job is to serve the people, the number one warrior in town, Saul. He's the number one fighter. He should have gone and taken on Goliath. But instead, watched for 40 days as Goliath came in and mocked his people and mocked God and demoralized people. David rocks up on the first day and he's like, "Yeah, okay, let's go." Let nobody else lose heart. What David recognized in his life and what his attitude was built around and what fed into his faith is this, that he was there to serve God. God wasn't there to serve him. How often, I know in my life, I look at God and go, "God, are you making my life any better today? Hey, God, I'm going through a hard time. Did you know that? Hello? God, I need some more money. Hello? Are you there? Fix it, But that's not how we're called to live our life. We're actually called to live a life that serves God and serves people. And I believe, certainly, no doubt about it, that through doing that, our lives become richer. It's a little bit of the illustration of the cat and the dog. We got any cat people kind of in the house? Any dog people? Yeah, there's a lot more hands, and I'll tell you why. This is why. Yeah, you're going on a journey today. The dogs just love you, right? You come home and they love you. Their tails are wagging. They jump up, they want to lick you. You feed them, they're grateful. You don't feed them, they're grateful. You walk them, they're grateful. You don't walk them, they're still grateful. Dogs look and go, "How much must my master love me? They feed me, they take care of me, they look after me." Cats. They want no bar of you unless there's something in it for them. And cats look at their masters and go, "They feed me, they water, they give me water, they look after me. They love me. I must be God." Dogs, on the other hand, think that their masters are gods. That's why they love them. But sometimes don't we approach God a little bit like that? That we're the person of importance. That I'm the person of importance. So what's going on in my world is the most important thing today. And God, are you listening? And he is, and he's there. But it should be a flip script to go, no, I live to serve God. God wants me to serve others. And as that becomes my attitude, how much more does that change the way I look at the world? Looking at the needs of others. Looking at what God might have for me to do. How much does that change my faith? Knowing that life just goes like this and there's nothing you can do about it. Brokenness and battles, but the reality is I'm here to serve God. David rocks up and sees Goliath, doesn't see him for what he is. He sees it as an opportunity to serve God. David had the right attitude. Let's keep going. Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." You know what David shows here is that he has the right formation. He's been doing the work behind the scenes. Anyone into the Olympics the last few weeks? I was not, And then I was like, they shouldn't be doing, I was one of those people, like, they shouldn't be doing the Olympics during COVID. My wife's like, give it a couple of days. Within a couple of days, I'm like, watching the Olympics. My kid got into the Olympics. I was so happy. He's getting up in the morning. He's like, golf, this is awesome. I was like, yes. Now I'm hanging out with my kids and watching sport. But you know what I find crazy about the Olympics is this, that it is every 4 years. And how hard some of these athletes have to work for like 30 seconds every 4 years. Like, I'm much more of like a team sport AFL kind of guy where you just get another chance every 9 months. You know, like play domestic basketball, there's like 4 grand finals a year. It's awesome. The next opportunity is just around the corner. These guys, and how like funny it is, like, side note, when you see these Olympians, and like we all know like what I would have done if I was swimming that race. Like, oh, he just breathed too many times. I'm like, that's what slowed you down. Like, if it was me in the pool, I would have just not breathed at all. You know, and then I would have got a gold, you know, and they're like, oh, you lost by 2 seconds. Oh, geez, silver, you know. I'm like, people say this stuff. I'm like, the amount of work that these guys must do, day in, day out, for a 1 minute, 2 minute race, every 4 years. The preparation that goes into that to be great. I sit there on my TV lounge chair and sit there and watch, and I'm an expert on the Olympics. These guys, in and out. You know, they look at David and go, you're just a young boy, you can't do this. And David's like, you have no idea the preparation I've been doing. You know, those few sheep that I've been responsible for? A lion came and I got rid of the lion. Then a bear came and I roasted the bear. Like, this guy's no different. He's just a human. David had been preparing and forming himself behind the scenes, ready for what God was going to do. You know, we all want the Goliath moment in life, the triumph, the big victory. We all want to fight Goliath and get that David moment, but we're not interested in the lion or the bear. You know, he wasn't looking after those sheep to slay Goliath. That wasn't his goal. He didn't know, God didn't say to him, hey, be faithful with these sheep and then you can kill a giant. David just knew that God was calling him in his life to follow him and love him and honor him. And so he was responsible with the few sheep that he was given. And then when the test of the lion came, he overcame the test of the lion. When the test of the bear came, he overcame the test of the bear. And so he knew when his moment came that God had delivered for him in the past and he would deliver for him again because of what he'd been through. You know, it might seem like in life at the moment you're just looking after a few sheep. Might seem like life's not that significant for you. Maybe you feel like you're in a battle against a lion or a bear. Difficult, hard times. Maybe looking after a sheep to you just seems a little bit boring. When we have the right attitude and we allow God to form us in the right way. No, I'm just here to serve God with everything I do, whether it's my job that I don't like, whether it's looking after my family and my kids, whether it's being a responsible citizen with my neighbours, whether it's being a loving friend that serves other people. And you sit there and you allow God to form you on the inside. When your Goliath moment comes, you're ready for it. When God thinks you're ready for the next thing, that's when it comes. So many times in life, I've looked ahead and gone, I should be down there. And then I get down there and I'm like, holy, I don't feel ready for this now. What was I thinking back then? You know, why won't God trust me with more? Well, was I being faithful with the little that he'd given me in the first place? I'm not so sure I was. In fact, I know I wasn't. And it's funny, in hindsight, you can turn around and go, like, why would anybody have trusted me with anything more than what I had then? Because I wasn't stewarding what I had well. The key to having a good foundation is having good formation. And that happens wherever we are. In whatever stage of life we are, God is forming us to be more like him. Don't write the season of life you're in now as insignificant. Because it's significant for the next one. Which will be significant for the next one. Which will be significant for the next one. It's funny, sometimes through the hardest times of life, we can see God the clearest. Sometimes through the biggest battles, we learn the most about ourselves. Sometimes it's in the easy times that we can not steward well what God has given us. Because we can become comfortable and complacent. But David knew in that season, he knew he was going to be king. but he was happy to be faithful with the sheep. And he didn't come in really arrogant and be like, what do you, he's not slinging off at anybody else. He's just like, hey, what happens for the person that gets this, that gets the job done? He's like, you're just young. He didn't say, well, I'm a better warrior than you, did he? He was able to show what God had done in his life, the formation that had happened, so that he was able to go after Goliath. Story continues, and Saul talking to David, and he says, go and the Lord be with you. Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. I cannot go in these, he said, because I am not used to them. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd bag, and with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. David, what we see come through this is that he was confident in his own identity. He knew who he was. Saul, I love the start of that as well. Saul's like, go, God be with you. It's like, God bless. Probably still just a bit confused. But he looks, and he's like, no, before I send you, it would be irresponsible of me to let you go without wearing some armor. Hey, here, you can borrow mine. The little border boy, remember? Putting on the big warrior outfit. You can just see, I can just imagine him putting it on and feeling a bit ridiculous. And it says he tries to, and he just can't even walk because it's so heavy. He's like, I can't go in this. He drops it. Love that he goes with what's in his hand. He gets his staff and his sling, picks up a few rocks, confident in what he's going to do. And off he goes. And as I ruined at the beginning, he defeats Goliath. But he was confident in his identity. If we want a unbreakable faith, we want to build a foundation in our life that allows us to have that, we need to be sure of our identity. We need to be confident in who we are. David was confident in who he was. So much so that he didn't need the king's armor. You know what robs us so often in our faith is comparison. Is looking at what somebody else has, looking at what somebody else does, going, I just need a bit of that. Or if I was just more like this person, geez, wouldn't that be better? Not comfortable in our own skin, not willing to own our own decisions. Looking at other people's lives and wanting that, or wanting to be more like them. When God created you to be you, not somebody else. Gave you the life that you live, created you uniquely the way you are. And when we become comfortable with that, it's so much clearer what God has for us. I've shared this story before and probably here, but for me, this was one of those identity type moments. When I came on our staff kind of a few more days a week, I think they just wanted to get me on a few more days, but didn't have any more youth days. So we've got some days in the creative department. I'm like, that's odd, but okay. What does that mean? They're like, he's got to help the creative pastor. I'm like, cool, I can do that. I can help. That's easy. Let's do that. And that creative pastor on my first day left, and not because of me, let's go. Well, probably because of me. They moved away. There was no bad blood, but they're like, look, we feel God's moved. And so they're like, oh, you're already doing that, so you just pick up the whole thing. I was like, no, I'm not already doing anything. Like, today's my first day in this bit. And so I took on our creative department, not a musical bone in my body, like rocking up to worship team nights going, hey guys, how you doing? Like, I'm just here to bring the pizza, I'm still here I've moved from pizza to Krispy Kreme. So, I just bring the Krispy Kremes, right? We're recording an album tonight. I've contributed literally nothing musically to it. It's great, but I brought lots of Krispy Kremes. But I remember having this one moment. I was at a conference somewhere, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I look after our creative department, like our worship team. And they're like, cool, what do you do? Do you sing? I'm like, nope. Oh, do you play an instrument? Nope. Oh, so you do sound? Nope. I don't even know how to turn ours on. The guys do it for me, like it was real early days. And they're like, oh, so like cameras, editing? Like, nope. They're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, let's hang out with the people, like just organize things. And she's like, this is ridiculous. Oi! And she starts calling her friends over. And she's like, this guy here, he looks after worship team, he doesn't do anything. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you get paid to sit there? And I'm like, no. And I felt like incredibly insecure and embarrassed. I was like, oh, I'm going home and I gotta like go back to, I was meant to go to this conference and be encouraged. Now I feel like I'm a failure. So people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I work for a church. What do you do? Oh, just work for, I do youth ministry. So I just changed, I do youth ministry because I did that too. But there was this insecurity in me going, wow, man, like, and, you know, they weren't like meaning to be mean to me or like, I think they were just fascinated. They were from the UK. So obviously everyone over there can sing and when they look after teams, you know, like, got to be able to do something. But it took a long time for me to kind of overcome that moment and go, no, I remember talking to you know, Pastor Dean about it. He's like, no, like, we're confident in what we have you doing, and how reassuring that was for me. Like, it felt like an accident. And so I led our team for a long time like it was an accident. Like, I'm just here, and now they've given me a job as a contract. They probably can't tear it up. Like, that's literally how I was living. Like, waiting for the next person that could actually do the job I thought needed to be doing. Like, where's that person? Where are they going to come from? When are they coming? And this whole time, I think there's a lesson in it for me that was in identity. For Jesus to be, I called you to be who you are, so lead like that. And it took a long time for me to feel comfortable in that. But I remember the day that it clicked for me. And it just changed the way I thought about myself. It changed the way I thought about how I pastored and led people. And I was better for it. Because I was comfortable in what God was doing. Is it the end game? No. Like a title or a job is not the end game. The end game is becoming more and more the way God created you to be and being comfortable with that. I invite the team to come back and join us. I'm going to wrap up for us. Believe that this series is going to be so significant for us because as people of faith, to have an unbreakable faith means much to us becoming the person that God has created us to be. God's people. That we could go out into the world and there be something different about the way we live our lives through the ups and the downs because of who God is making us to be. That the way we would approach our job that we don't like, that the way we would approach the job that we do like, the way we would approach raising our families, being friends, all those things that we do, where we volunteer. The kind of Oz Kit coach you'll be when the kids are ratty, they'll test you. Like, what kind of person are you becoming? Because the guarantee is that life will go like this. It just does. And thinking back to that very fragile piece of glass at the beginning, that's our faith. So has it got the right foundation underneath it? Or is it just sitting loosely, ready to shatter at any moment? And I think any of those things, attitude, formation, identity, are big ticket items. And ones that can cause our faith to derail. Or can cause our faith to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So that you can be sitting here in 10 years' time and go, I'm not the same as I was 10 years ago. And I'm not just older than what I was 10 years ago. But actually, I'm more of the person who God was creating me to be than I was 10 years ago. Because my life is about serving Him. That in the experiences I'm having, I'm learning to be more and more like Him. And I'm becoming more and more comfortable in who He created me to be. And if we can live that out, wow, what that would do for our faith. And so I'm going to just wrap up asking these three questions. And it's this, it's our attitude. Is my life more about serving God and others, or is it about what God is doing for me? Our formation. Am I being formed into the person that God is calling me to be? Or are situations and circumstances forming me into the person that I'm becoming? And identity. Do I know who I am? And am I secure in who God made me to be? I encourage you to think about those during the week. Been thinking about those things all week, like my attitude. And it's funny how quickly you can catch your attitude when it's off, if you're looking for it. And if you're not very good at that, give some people in your life permission to like call you out for your bad attitude. That gets scary. Happens real quick. Well, it does for me anyway. So, 8. Oh, yep. Very easy to see in your life whether it's more about God and others or self. Look at where you're spending your time, what you're doing with your life. Does it reflect a person that serves God? Look at your bank account and your calendar and have a look at where your time is spent. Not like mandatory time, like going to work time, but other time. Like, is it spent with God and helping others? Because I know for me, often it's not enough of that. And I want it to be more. And then identity is a massive one for everyone. Are we all looking at what the person next door has? Or are we comfortable and grateful for what God has given us? And it's not about being comfortable in your own skin. I don't love the word comfortable because it means too many things. Like, you can just be comfortable and be like, yeah, this is the best, this is as good as it gets. But actually secure in who God has made you to be. That seeing what somebody else has, or looking at what you don't have, or looking at what you want down the track doesn't derail you from who God wants you to be. We're called to be secure in our identity. And so I'm going to pray, and we're going to stand, and the team is just going to lead us in another moment of worship. Why don't we stand up? We're all warm now, right? No, I am. I am possibly sweaty under this jumper. But I want to pray for us. I want to pray a prayer of foundation over us for our faith. We're going to sing this song again that we sang earlier, Raise a Hallelujah. And I'd love to just sing it as a people of faith, knowing that we're grounded in Him, knowing that our foundation of life is in Him. And if there's one of these three things today, or if you're like me, maybe it was all three things kind of spoke to you, give that to God in this moment. If your attitude is a little bit off, maybe just allow Him to speak into that space. As we sing this song, allow Him to remove some things that maybe need to be removed and put some things in. Maybe it's the identity one, I get the sense for some people, going, I'm not quite comfortable in who God made me to be. I'm not quite happy with where my life is at. Circumstances change, but who God made you to be is who He made you to be. And as you sing this song to Him, as you raise a hallelujah to Him, as you sing and lift your voice and maybe raise your hands, my prayer would be that there would be a security that would wash over your life. And that you would walk out of here comfortable with who He made you to be. Confident that whatever you face tomorrow or the next day or in 12 months' time, He's created you to be able to get through. And that He's not off in the distance watching, going like Saul with David, going, God bless, good luck. He actually wants to be invited into that space. Invite Him into your brokenness. Invite Him into your insecurity. Invite Him into your bad attitude. Invite Him in to form you into the person that He created you to be. Someone who He created to love Him and to serve Him and to make a difference in the lives of others. That's who He wants you to be. Anyone else? Let me pray for you. Lord, I thank You that through Your word you can speak to us, and You can speak from stories that happened way before our time, written in Your word, to us today. And they're as relevant now as they were then. And Lord, I pray for each person here. Lord, You know them, You know their story, You know their challenges, You know their trials, You know their hurts, You know their joy, You know their lives. Lord, because You created them. And so I pray as we worship You, as we turn our attention to You, as we sing words of worship to You, Lord, may You strengthen the foundation of our faith. Lord, for those that need a little bit of an attitude adjustment, Lord, would You gently and graciously lead us in that. Lord, for those that need to make decisions in their life to be formed more around who You are. And Lord, for those that need to be a bit more secure in who they were created to be, may You bring all of that to us by Your Spirit in this moment. That we